Hey everyone, Tashia Hart here. Today we're going to be making four-sided Patience in Bloom flower earrings. I have an example of a five-sided one that I was working on last night. So the four-sided one is going to look like this, except it's going to have 4 petals on the inside and 4 on the outside. So it's going to look more like a square. And here I just have, this is an example of the different layers of this design. So first what we're going to start with is we're going to do sort of like this flat, I call it like a base layer. It looks like a star. And the one we're going to make today is going to look like more like a square. And then on top of that, so we build our base layer, and then on top of that we build all these different little petals. And then we make another base layer, and we sew them together, and then we're going to add like a trim around the edge with some bigger beads, and then we're going to put on our earring hooks. Okay, so what we're going to need today is some thread. This is size D Nymo. You can use size B or anything similar that you can get through size 11 beads at least a few times. So it can't be too thick, so nothing bigger than a size D. I'm actually not sure if there is thread that's bigger than size D, but... Okay, and then we're going to need beads. So these are size 11, some metallic and some matte, shiny, and there's all kinds of beads. And what I like to use for my bases is I like to use clear beads. Sometimes I'll use black beads, but lately I've been really using clear, and I like to do that because it really helps keeps the colors clear. But I also do sometimes I'll make these colorful backgrounds like this, because then when you flip your piece over, when somebody looks at your piece, they'll see all these colors on the back too. So I also do that, and that is fine. You can use it whatever color you want. And then sometimes the size 11s will come in bigger bags, like that. Sometimes they'll come in tubes. And it's okay to use size 10 for this project too. You could even use size 13, but it gets pretty tricky with the design. But you're certainly welcome to try that. And I've even used these bigger beads, like size, so these are like a size 8, excuse me, a size 6. The thing about these bigger beads that you have to watch out for is that the bigger the bead gets, it seems like it's harder for the manufacturer to like keep them the same size. But some of them are more uniform than others, like these ones that I found in the tube. These seem to be pretty uniform. These are also a size 8. Here's another example of a little size 8 that's on a string. These are a little more uniform as well. And then we have this is a size 8. Those last ones were size 6. So for this you need 2 earring hooks, some thread. You're going to need some needles, and I use size 12. Sometimes I use 13. When I first started making these flowers, I was using size 13 all the time with size B thread, and that works really well as also. Because if you use that smaller needle and a smaller thread, then you can go through your design multiple times and get it nice and tight, and it looks really good. And but you can also use size 12 and size up your thread as well as size D, and then you don't have to go through as many times. But the thing about that is if you don't go through more than like a couple times, then you have to really make sure you keep your tension as you're working, and that's a little harder to do. So, but these are, a couple different brands of size 12. I'm going to be using these today. You're going to need some scissors, and you don't have to have the pliers, but sometimes if it starts to get tight and you have to pull on the needle to get it out. And when I don't have these around, I admit that I use my teeth, but I don't recommend that. So if you have, this is a round, smooth nose. You can also use a flat nose, works really well. I just had this laying around because I use this for my birch bark jewelry as well, for twirling the wires on that. And then also for this project, you're going to need, it doesn't matter what color you can use all one color bead in your size 11s or size 10s, or you can use, let's see, up to, I usually use about 7 colors per flower, but today I think I'm just going to go with a few to sort of make this, like the line, the pattern more apparent. And so you can have one, or you can have as many colors as you want. And you can see here, this one has about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's about 6 in this one here. And then I would put another, like a bright red around the edge. And for the edging, that's where our bigger beads are going to come in handy. And you don't need bigger beads. You can use size 10 or 11 for this, for the outside too. That's what I was using for years, so that is cool as well. I found that these bigger beads sort of make it a little easier. They're a little easier to work with on the edges and for getting our earring hooks in and everything. But the smaller beads work just fine for that too. So I'm going to go ahead and pick out my beads and get set up here. Okay, so I'm back. I have my colors picked. I decided to go with 3 colors today and my clear for my backing. So I'm going to do this blue and sort of like this metallic-y gray blue, and then this like dusty pink. And then you're going to want about 4.5 feet of thread. And what I usually do is I just take a length that's like as far as my arms can stretch, and then that's good. And it's kind of funny because I just had, I cut my thread and it was, the end was laying off of the side of the table here for like 5 seconds. And then I picked it up to stick it in my mouth to help it get on my needle, and it was already wet, and I looked down and my cat was down there. So beware of that. And also, like, my cat, I know that's kind of gross, but if I leave my thread like out, it will, the next morning or like an hour later, it will be all over the house, and I have to like unravel it from chair legs and everything. So that's, I mean, it's always good for a laugh, but it's kind of frustrating to have to do that every single time. So what I do is I take one end of the thread and I wrap that around my index finger 3 times. And what this is doing is, how I create these pieces is I don't put knots in any of the work. I like to keep tension by holding onto the thread. And then you'll see, so this piece that I wrapped around my finger, this is going to be the end piece that we're going to weave it back through the piece. So instead of tying a knot, we're going to weave it in. We're going to make a little flat base like that, and then we're going to weave in the end, and then we're going to work from there. And then we're going to weave in the other end at the very end. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that around. And I got some nice tension there. You don't want it too tight. You don't want your finger turning purple, but you want it tight enough that you can pull on it and it will create tension in your piece. See if I can get this without having to stick that back in my mouth because it's full of cat slobber. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, and since we're working, we're going to create a square piece today, a 4-sided piece. I'm going to pick up 8 of my clear beads, or whatever color you're using for the center. It's going to be So what we're creating now, right now, is going to be this this first base piece for the flower. And whatever color you're using right now to pick up these first 8 beads, that's going to go, you'll be able to see that in the middle of the flower. So right in this one, it's purple. So there's a purple center in this one. In mine, I'm just going to do clear. See if I can get my light over a little better. Okay, so we're going to pick up 8. Go ahead and pull that down to the end here by your finger. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to come back through the other way, so your needle is going this way. We're going to come through from behind and go all through 8 of them. So it'll look like this. And then we're going to go through just one more so that it kind of closes our circle there. If we don't go through one more, then we get this kind of gap. Get a gap in between the beads there. There. So what you should have right now is 8 beads that looks like a little square. Okay, now we're going to pick up 3 beads. Whatever color you want. And this is the base, so you're not really going to be able to see these underneath the petals, so you can just keep that in mind. But I still like to use clear or black, but sometimes I use the same piece, like color whatever the flowers are on top. I'll use that same color. So I pick up 3, and now we're coming out of this one bead, and we're going to skip a bead and go through the next bead. And it's kind of like we're going to go through like the next corner. So like we're kind of coming out of a corner of the square. We're going to skip a bead and then we're going to go through the next corner. Skip a bead and then go through the next bead. So we got like this little square with a little triangle on the top now that we made. And we're going to pick up 3 beads and we're going to skip a bead and then go through the next bead, and we're just going to do that all the way around. So I'm picking up 3 beads. I'm going to skip that next bead, and then I'm going to go through this other little corner bead here. Three more beads. Skip that next bead and go through the next bead. See, so we're making it sort of looking like a diamond or like a star-shaped, a 4-sided star shape kind of right now. Picked up 3 beads and then gonna go through this next bead. Okay, so now we're back to the beginning. Now, so our thread's facing this way. And what we want to do is we want to come up the side of this little, see if I can get my camera to focus. Come up the side of this little point. See how there's 4 little points now? We want to come up the side, and we're going to come out the top of one of these little points. So we're going to come out the top bead. Okay, so now our thread is out of the top beads, going this way. And now we're going to pick up 5 more beads, and for me that's going to be clear beads. And for you, whatever color you're going to do, sometimes you can see this row and it'll be under, see those orange petals there? So whatever this color is that you're picking up now, you're kind of going to be able to see it under, like poking out beneath that yellow bead there on the bottom. So sometimes I like to add a pop of color on this row, but I'm just going to do clear. So I'm going to pick up 5 beads. Okay, and then so I'm currently out, my needle and thread is poking out the top of one of these corners. So I'm going to go to the very next corner. I'm going to skip everything here and I'm just going to go through the corner that's closest. So what we're gonna end up with is gonna look like this. And then we're gonna do this all the way around. We're gonna pick up 5 beads and then go through this corner, 5 beads and then go through that corner, 5 beads and then come back through this original first corner. So I'm just gonna do that right now. And as you're doing this, I know it might be kind of awkward to get used to with having this thread around your finger, but it gets easier. It's a really good way to keep the tension in the piece too. So, but when you're starting, it might feel like it's in the way. So it's, but it gets better. Okay, so I'm coming back through my the first bead. Okay, so I'm just gonna come out through that bead. All right, so my thread is now coming out of this corner, this bead right here. It's facing this way. And what I'm gonna do, so those 5 beads that I just put on there, all the way around, I'm gonna go up through just 2 of those beads on this row that's right next to this corner. So I'm just gonna go through 2 and then I'm gonna come out. So now what I'm working with looks like this. So what we're doing here is we're setting ourselves up to put on another corner. So we're gonna be putting corners all the way around here. So I'm gonna pick up 3 beads and I'm gonna skip this very middle bead right here, and then I'm gonna go through these 2 beads. I'm gonna go through that top corner, the next top corner, and then I'm gonna come out through I'm gonna go through 2 more beads. Okay, so I'm skipping 1 bead, going through these 2, and then the 1 top corner, and then the next 2 clear beads on the other side. And then I'm gonna come out. So what we have should look like this. Okay, and then we're just gonna do that all the way around. So we're gonna pick up 3 more beads, skip this bead here, go through these 2 beads, this top corner bead, and then these next 2 beads here, and come out over here. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that right now. Skipping a bead, going through 2 beads, the top, and then the next 2 beads. I do that again. Pick up 3, going through, skip a bead, go through 2 beads, the top bead, and then the next 2 beads, and coming out. Okay, I'm gonna do that one more time. Skipping a bead, going through 2, and then for this one I'm just going to come out through this next top bead. I'm not going to go through those next 2 beads again. I'm just going to come out of that top of that inner. Okay. So right now my thread is coming out of this top middle, this little bead right here. It's going that way. But right now we're just going to put this in down, because now we're going to, now that we have this, so this is our base. Kind of looks like a snowflake. Okay. I'm going to unravel this. First I'm going to make sure that there's some tension and that the piece is nice and, it's firm. You don't need to pull too hard, but just enough to make sure that it's tight. Okay, and I'm going to put a needle on this other end. Sometimes I take off my needle from this end and put it on here, but I happen to have another needle laying here, so I'm just going to put on this end. Okay, and now what we're going to do, since we're not tying any knots in our piece, and you can if you have to, if the tension just isn't working for you, you can try and tie a knot somewhere. but it really does make the piece look more smooth and just, you know, it's kind of nice when there isn't knots poking out of it. So we're just gonna weave this end in, and I would say you need to weave in probably, you know, maybe like 3 inches worth, or until you'll be able to tell when it's starting to feel nice and, you know, solid. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of weave it in, and try and space out your weaving. Usually what I'll do is I'll go through these little points, and then I'll go through this top point, and then by the time I get around again, it'll be good. I can tell that it's good. But you don't want to go around the same beads, because then your thread's going to be getting pretty thick in your bead, and when you go to put on your petals, it'll be hard to get your needle through, and sometimes beads break, and sometimes they break anyway, depending on the kind of bead. Like even if it's the same size, some of the beads are a little, like they're narrower, I've noticed, or they're a little thinner, or like the holes, the holes are smaller. Like my little pink beads, the holes on these actually seem smaller than like the holes on these clear beads here, and it's just a difference in the brand. So you just got to be aware of that. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna start going through this outer layer here. Just gonna kind of go around these points, making sure to keep my tension. It's feeling good. Okay, I'm feeling like it's getting pretty solid. I'm gonna go over this top and maybe up the other side, and then I think it'll be good. Maybe I'll go down to here. Okay, and I'm gonna take my needle off. I'm just gonna cut the end of that off, and we have our first little base piece. Ooh. Excuse me, I just need a drink of water. Okay. My voice is raspy this morning. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put on our petals. So we have our base piece here, and the long thread, the only thread left now, should be coming out. You should be coming out the top of one of these like centers. So there's outer points and then there's inner points. You should be coming out of the top of one of these right here, and you're going to be going this way. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, the colors that we're going to pick up now, if you're trying to decide what color. So on this one, we're picking up the sides of the green, these green petals. Okay, so we're going to pick up 3 beads. And I think I'm just going to use this for all of this sort of steely gray for all of mine. And some of these beads are a little smaller, so I'm going to try and pick up the ones that are most uniform. And then what I'm going to do, so my thread's coming this way. I have 3 beads. What I'm going to do is, I don't know if you can see that, going inwards. So I'm not going to go out, I'm going to work in. So the bead that my thread is coming out of, I'm going to skip the next bead going inward, and then I'm going to come out through one of the corners of our original square that we made with those first 8 beads, and then it has like those little corners. We're going to come out that closest corner. So we're skipping a bead going in and down, and we're coming out the next bead. I'll show you. So it should look like that. Okay, and we're going to pick up 3 more. I'm going to pick up 3 more of these here. And then I'm going to work coming out this way. So back out to this, I want to skip this for next bead, and I want to come out that bead right there. So that corner that's right in there. And we're going to do that all the way around. So I'm going to pick up 3 more beads, and then I'm going to work inward again. I'm going to skip this bead here, and then I'm going to go through this bead right there, that next corner of that square in there. Okay. One second. Okay. So what we have should look like this. So we're going to keep doing this all the way around. Picking up 3, skipping 1, going up, and then coming out this little corner bead up here. Inner corner bead. It's like the little tip of our center, sort of like star figure. Okay, and then we're going to pick up 3 more, skip a bead going in and down like that, and come out the top of one of these little corners of our inner square. Okay, pick up 3 more, go up, skip a bead, come out the top of this little inner star. Pick up 3, skip 1 coming in, come out the top of this little square corner. Pick up 3 more. Okay, so our final one is gonna be the first one that where we started. This little top here, next to our first gray side of our petal that we put on. So what we have should look like this. It's starting to look 3-dimensional. Okay, so we're facing this way, our needle's coming out this way. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back up through that first set of gray beads that we put on, or whatever your color is. We're going to go through all 3 of those and come out the bottom. Just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we're coming out the bottom here. Okay. So now you can see the thread is coming out the bottom of this one gray side here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the color that's going to lay in the middle of our gray bead petals here. So it can be one color, it can be the same color, it can be 3 different colors if you want. So on this example, this is like that little kind of greenish blue color. So that's what we're picking up and putting on right now, okay? So for me, I think I'm gonna do this blue. So I'm gonna pick up 3 beads. And I'm just gonna slide these beads down and lay them on so you can see what we're doing here. Okay, so for me, the blue beads are gonna be inside of these little gray beads. So our thread is coming out from this way. So we're at the top. So what we do here is we work from top to bottom, pretty much on all of these layers. So what I'm gonna do is this other, so we came out of this side, and now we're gonna go back down through the other gray side. So I'll just show you. So I'm going through all 3 of these other gray beads right on the side of these blue beads. So what you have should look like that, and your thread should be coming out the bottom of this other side of the petal here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go up through the 3 beads in the middle, these blue beads here. Okay, and you want to, as you're working on this, I use my pinky a lot to push down and tighten little petals, so whatever works for you to keep the tension in your piece, because you want to keep it nice and tight. So I just tap these down as I go. Okay, so now we're sticking out the top this way. And now we're going to go back down through the top of that first side, okay, of gray beads, and we're going to come out the bottom again. Okay. So make sure that's nice and snug. And I like to work on the shaping as I go, so just make it look nice. All right, so we're coming out the bottom here, and now we're going to work on this petal that's right next to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up through these next 3 beads right next to this, where we came out at, okay? So we're coming up, come out the top of these 3 gray beads. All right, so now the next 3 beads can be the same color, like this gray or whatever your color is for this first round of petals, or you can make it a different color. So what we're putting on now is, see these little green petals? We're putting on the tips of them. And you can make them the same color, or like you can make them different, the tips different color. See how these orange beads have red tips? So these next 3 beads are going to be your tips for this inner layer of petals. But for me, I'm just going to go ahead and put on same gray blue. So I'm just picking up 3. Pick up 3, and then we're going to go down through this other side of gray beads and out that 3rd bead at the bottom. You got to watch this. The thread will start to get caught on all the different little petals and things. Okay, so we're coming out this way. We're going to pick up our center beads for this petal. Yay, we got our first petal tip on. Okay, so I'm going to pick up, let's see, 3 more blue. And then I'll lay them on. Okay, so they're going to be stuck there like that. And you don't have to lay them on like this before you go through, but it makes it a little easier to tell like which way you're going. So our thread's going this way. So now I'm going to come down through those original 3. Let's see if I can get there we go. Come down through this bead. So we're not going to go touch these tips of the petals. We're going to go take our needle and go through those 3 beads on the side there to come down, just like we did on that last one. We're just going to pretend like the petal isn't even there after we add it. Okay, and just make sure you, so when I put these on, sometimes the thread will get caught on the tips of these petals and it'll make it look really kind of misshapen, so you just got to keep an eye out for that. Okay, now we're going to go back up through these blue beads and out the top of the blue. Okay, just going to give it a little tightening with my pinky. Now we're going to go back down through the 3 beads on this side of the petal. Okay, so just leaving the tip alone. So we're going back down through. Okay, and I'm just going to shape my beads. I like to pull out, like, see these, all of the little middle beads on like all of the petals. I like to pull the middle beads out so it creates shape, because if they're flattened in, it looks sort of smushed. So I like to pop those out as I go. I just stick my needle in and I kind of pull it out. Okay, and it looks nicer at the end if we keep doing that all the way through. So now I'm coming out of those gray beads. So now what I'm going to do is this next gray side here, I'm going to go up through and out that top. Okay. Put on 3 more of my gray blue beads. So this is another tip. And then I'm going to come down through this side here. Okay, and I'm just going to fix, see my beads got all twisted up here. They'll do that. Okay, and I'm going to pick up 3 blue for my centers. And then I'm going to come down that I better go put my seam out. Be right back. That thunder. Okay. Let's see, where were we? Okay, so we have our 3 beads, center beads. So we're gonna go down through the other side. Those 3 beads. Okay, and then we're gonna go back up through the 3 middle beads here. Mine are blue. Tighten it there with my finger, my little pinky. Also gonna kind of shape it. I'm gonna go back down through this side here. Okay. Okay, so we're back out in the middle again. We're going to go back up through our last side, all the way up to the top. Put on our tip beads. Pick up your 3 beads and then go back down the other side. Okay, I'm going to pick up my 3 middle beads. I'm going to go down 3 beads on the other side. Okay, and go up my 3 middle blue beads. Give it a little tightening. I'm going to go down the other side again. Shaping it. I shape it, my thumb here, I use it to shape as I go too. So you can press, as you're holding it, you can use that thumb. There, I'm just going to kind of shape that little bead. Alright, so now we're back to our first one, and you'll notice that it doesn't have a tip on it. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to go through, go up the side, and then we're going to pick up our 3 beads and put the tip on this first petal that we made. Okay. 3. We're going to go down the other side. And what do we have? We have our center row of petals, circle of petals. Pretty cool, huh? I'm just excited. I wonder what yours looks like. Okay. So now what we're going to do is a little tricky. So we're coming out of the petal this way. We're in the center. And what we're going to do, let's see if I can get my camera to focus. So that little, so my center is clear now. The center of my flower is clear. And what we need to do is there's our original 8 beads that we made a square with. One of those tips of the square, one of those corners, is right underneath the corner of these 2 petals where they come together. It's sort of where both of those petals come out of, is that one center, sort of like tip of our square. We're going to go this way through that corner tip and come out the back side of that, okay? So it's a little tricky. You gotta kind of go down and through. Just gonna flip it over. All right, so you can see the back here. And I'm coming out of 1, 2, I'm going through the bead that's right next to that bead also. And it's going up. Okay, we don't want to work inwards. We're gonna go up because we want to get to our outer row of petals now. So I'm going through 2 beads. I'm gonna flip it over to make sure there's nothing caught. Oh, see, it's caught on the other side. It's making it look all squished up. So I just gotta get that out. Kind of shape my beads, my little petals, flip it back over. Okay, now, so I'm coming out of right here. So what I want to do is get up to one of these up here. And I don't want to come out of the tip. See how our tips are made of 3 beads? I don't want to come out of any of those 3 beads. I want to go up and come out of the bead that's right before those 3 tip beads, okay? But I'm going to come out the front side. So I'm going up 2 more, and I'm coming out the front. You'll find that we'll be flipping this piece over back and forth, working front to back as we go, okay? So now for me, I'm coming out of this, this little bead right here. So it's right next to the tip of this petal, this gray petal. And then right on top, right next to it are these 3 beads here. So I'm right where I want to be. And I'm not in this middle bead, I'm on this kind of the side of it over here. I'm on this edge. So now, the next 3 beads you pick up are going to be, so on this flower they're orange. So whatever 3 beads you pick up, that's where they're going to be. They're going to make up the sides of your outer row of petals, okay? Let's see. And I think I'm just going to do, kind of rethinking my whole grayscale here. I think I'm just going to go with it. So I'm going to do gray again, picking up 3. Okay, and now we're going to come out the tip this way, that tip bead. So we're skipping a bead and then we're coming out the tip. Okay, so essentially what we're doing is the exact same thing that we did on the first row of beads, first circle of petals, except we're doing it on the outside. So there's a little bit more beads to go through to get to each petal, but it's essentially the same thing. So we're going to pick up 3 more beads. We're working inward, so we're going to skip a bead coming this way, and then we're going to go through just one, the next bead. We're going to come out. There. Okay. So that's what it should look like. So I'm going to kind of work from the side now for just a second. So our bead, our thread is coming out this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around. I'm going to skip this bead that I just came out of and go through the very next one. So basically all we're doing here is we're just helping our thread to change direction. And it looks like I got some kind of a little, oh, I caught my thread there. Okay, let me just fix that. Okay, so all we did was we turned it around, we skipped a bead and came out the next one so that our thread could be going back this way. All right, so this gets, I don't know if you can see that, but this top, see this gray, the gray side here? We're gonna go up through this tippy top gray bead on that side. So right now we're right below it, and we're just gonna come up through it, and we're gonna be out the top. Okay. So don't pull too hard on this side, because if you pull too hard right now, it's going to sort of flatten out this row of beads. So don't pull too hard right now, just enough to have that come out there. Okay, and then we're going to pick up the next 3 beads for the tips of our flowers. So I'm using my gray, and then we're going to go down through the other side, right? You know the drill by now. Okay, and then we're going to pick up 3 beads for our center, and I'm going to use these dusty sort of rose, greasy pink kind of color. Okay, and then we're going to go down through the other side just like we did before. We're securing our center row in between our petal sides. Okay, I'm going to go up through the pink. Kind of can see that I hold it down there with my thumb as I work, so that it doesn't kind of go flying everywhere, get stretched out everywhere. Oh, and I caught my thread. Just gotta watch out for that. Okay, and I'm gonna push it down with my pinky. Make sure it's nice and snug now. Okay, I'm gonna go back down through this three beads on the side. Sometimes I'll just go through the first 2 at a time, so that I can I like to kind of tug, see that there's that middle bead, that second bead. So I like to kind of shape them outwards, and then sometimes I'll go through this one. If I go through all of them at the same time, sometimes it kind of just flattens out the shape of the side, and that's better for like if you're doing the five-sided ones where like the beads are tighter together, and sometimes they just have to be more flat looking, straight looking, the petals. I like it when there's a little bit of an edge to them. Okay, so now we're coming out of this side right here. We're going down, and this is a little tricky here, but we're gonna jump to, see this petal here with the blue that's right next to the right of it? So we're not gonna go down the 3, we're only gonna go down these last 2 that are nearest to the center. So we're gonna go down 2, I'll show you. See if my camera's focusing here. Okay, so I'm just going down 2. Look at that. Just gonna kind of pull that. I'm gonna fix my little center row here for shaping, because it looks starting to look a little smushed. Just gonna pull up that center bead. There. And kind of squish the center to where it gets nice and pointy. All right, so now we want to get back up to this top flower, so we're going to come up this side here. We're going to come up 2 beads. Just like we went down 2 beads on this side, we're going to go up 2 beads on this side. Okay? Give that a nice little pull. I kind of shape my petal. And now we're going to go up. I'm just going to go up 2 beads, and I'm going to stop for a second. Okay, so here's what we have so far. Look at that. Okay, so this is the point where you can decide. So I'm using a size D thread, and I've been pulling my tension pretty good, and I feel like my petal is really snug on there, and it feels pretty secure. If I'm using a smaller thread, sometimes I feel like I need to go around, up and around and down one more time to get it to feel nice and snug. Sometimes I even weave through this pink bead here again, the pink center, just to make sure it's nice and tight on there. But this is feeling pretty tight. If you have to do that now, you should go ahead and do that now. Do another loop through to make it nice and tight. And when we're ready, we're going to be coming out well, there's different ways we can come out actually. As long as we make it over to one of these other tips, you know, you can weave in and out however you want, but I'm just gonna come out. So I'm at the second sort of middle bead here on the side. I'm gonna flip my work over. And then on the bottom, there's these clear beads. It's at the base. I'm gonna go down this way and work all the way back over here until I'm right before those 3 beads on the tip over here. So I'm gonna be coming out of this bead here. So for me, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going through 6 beads. Sometimes this little bead right here that's in the middle on the bottom is really tight and you can't fit your needle through it, and you can just skip that and then go through those next 2 beads right there. Okay? I'm gonna try and go through it though if it's not too tight. Actually, I'm gonna skip it. It does look a little tight there. So I'm going through here and I'm coming out, and I've got those 3 up there, and I'm not gonna come out of those. I'm coming out of the bead right before it, like we did on the first one. Okay? You can see that. So we're coming out that way again. So we're gonna pick up, we're making our next petal. So I'm gonna pick up 3 gray beads. I'm gonna go this way out the tip, skipping a bead and going out the tip bead. Okay, pick up 3 more beads. Let's see, I'm kind of trying to pick the beads that are all the same size. And if you have different size beads, you can play with varying which kind of like bigger beads go where. And I like to put if you're working with the same color or a different color for your petal sides, I like to put the bigger bead in this middle bead here. So these 3 beads, this middle bead, I like to make it bigger, whether it's on the outside of the petal or the inside, because then it creates like a nicer shape. If you have bigger beads that are anywhere else, it kind of looks weird. Okay, so I have my 3 beads. I'm gonna skip this 1 clear bead and come out the next one. Okay, and here's where we do our threads coming out this way. Here's where we do our directional change. So we're just gonna turn back around and skip over the bead that we just came out of and come out, not the top bead, but the bead that's right before the top. And you could actually, you know, come out the top bead and then go down the other side, you know, whichever. Once you get a hang of it, you'll see that you can, you know, there's different ways to do it. As long as the pattern, you know, you get your petal in there. Okay, so now I'm still in this, coming out of this bottom clear bead. So I'm just gonna I'm coming this way. I'm gonna go through this top gray bead and come out top. Okay, and now we're gonna put our tip on. So I'm picking up my 3 tip beads, and then I'm gonna go down that other side of gray beads. And then I'm gonna pick up my 3 pink center beads. Okay, I have my 3 pink center beads on here. Now I'm gonna go down the other side, those 3 beads, to sew my center in. Oop. Just swung it across the room there. Just gonna kind of fix my beads right there. Okay, I'm gonna go back up through my pink beads. I'm going to go down the other side, making sure not to catch my tips. You can see my fingers kind of guiding the thread. My finger here is just guiding the thread to make sure it doesn't catch on the tip. Okay, got some fuzz on it. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and adjust my thread and needle because I need a little bit more room to work with. Okay, so now here's that kind of tricky part again where we go back into this middle here with the gray and blue, and we're gonna go down 2, so just 2. We're gonna go down those inner 2 beads on that side right there and come out the middle. Okay, I'm sort of shaping these beads as I go with my thumb here. And then we're going to go up these 2 gray beads here. Tightening it as we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to check my piece for tension and see if I need to go through it again, but it feels nice and tight. You know, using size D thread, it's pretty solid, so I'm just going to go ahead from here again. I'll show you what we have. Looking kind of pretty, huh? I can see some of my beads could use a little shaping here. Okay, and then I'm going to flip my piece over again to the side. So remember, the goal now here is to get to this other corner, right? So I'm going to flip it over, and there's a clear bead that's right underneath it. So my thread's coming out this way, and I want it to go that way. So I'm going to go down through these clear beads again that's on right underneath. Making sure that, you know, I know where my thread's at here. It's not getting tangled. I'm just going to keep working my way over. I'll just skip that tight clear bead there again. Okay, so you're coming out right before your tip. I'm just going to go ahead and put this, I'm just going to do that for the next 2. So I'm just going to do that there, and then we'll meet up when we have our top done, okay? Actually, I gotta fix my... Okay, so you can see I have my 4 petals. Woohoo! Alright, so I'm just about to come up and secure this last side. But now since we're not tying any knots in this, what I'm going to do is when I come back up, I'm just going to go around and kind of just like tighten some things up if they feel like they need to be tightened. Sometimes these little, the tips feel like they are a little wiggly, so I'll do that. And so it's sort of a dual purpose step because we're tying in the end of our thread, we're weaving it in, excuse me, and then we're also tightening up our pattern as we go. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm just going to keep going around the petal. Oh, it's looking so pretty. I wasn't sure how these grayish blue beads were going to work for both layers, but it looks really nice. So I'm happy with that. Sometimes I think that colors will look like really good, and then when I get the pattern kind of put together, I'm like, oh, you know, like that doesn't look what I envisioned in my mind. That happens often enough. But the great thing about colors is that, you know, what we might think is a little weird or just not quite our style, somebody else might really love it, you know, like, so I always remember that, and I try to just enjoy the experience, you know, whatever the outcome is, because you know, I always learn something. I've been making these for probably like 18 years, and I learn something, it seems like, every time, whether it's about how colors go together or just new little tricks. So my piece is getting pretty tight on the top. I'm actually just going to kind of shape these here. Kind of pop out all the centers. Pop up the centers of all these petals a little. But I'm going to work on the back a little bit because my piece is getting kind of tight on top. I just want to make sure that I weave in and up. And here's where I need my little pliers. On this top part, I'm trying to be really careful to make sure that I'm not catching my thread anywhere. This seems to be the step where I get excited because I'm pretty much done, and so I don't keep a good eye on where my thread's going, and then I realize when I cut my thread and I flip it over, I'm like, oh no, it cut somewhere. So just a heads up on that. You might want to flip your piece over every now and then just to make sure that your thread's not stuck somewhere where it shouldn't be. See, I think I'm going to come through this petal here. Oops, hit my camera. I'm feeling like it's almost, oh, I got a hair stuck. It's almost ready. I try to pull on the thread itself when I can instead of pulling just on the needle, so that way that your needle doesn't cut your thread, and it'll wear on it. But if you can, pull on your thread and not your needle as much as possible. Oh, what did I do? Okay. My thread just got caught. There we go. Okay, so I think I'm gonna end mine there. Feels nice and secure. See, flip it over. I don't see the thread caught anywhere. Okay. Just gonna go ahead and get my needle off. All right, so we've got a top. Now I'm just gonna sort of shape, see if there's any beads that need a little shaping. That looks pretty good. So my needle's pretty beat up. Your needle might get beat up, and I'll probably straighten that out because I don't want to just toss it out. You can straighten them out a few times before they get really just crazy looking. So that's what we have. So next what we're gonna do is we're gonna make another one of our bases. So I'm gonna go ahead and get another piece of thread, and this one doesn't have to be as long because we're not building the petals, we're just building the base, and then we're gonna attach it and put our little our edging beads on. So let's see, and I usually get about a foot less than you did last time. Should do the trick. I'm gonna use this straighter needle for this part. Just gonna straighten it out a little bit. Okay. If you have trouble getting the needle or the thread on the needle, there's one of those threading tools. Can be nice. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing as I did the first time. I'm just going to wrap the thread around 3 times. That gives us enough length to tie it in. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start on my bottom layer. So I'm going to pick up 8 clear beads, or whatever you want for your base. Could be any color. 3, 4, 5. Okay, pull them down to the end. So our needle's coming out this way. So we're going to go back through all of the beads, like so. Okay, I'm going to pull it down closer to my finger because I like to work about an inch away from my finger. So it's got that gap in it. So I'm just going to go up through one more bead to close it. Now our center little square is going to be nice and secure because there's like 2 layers of thread through it right now. So as long as we keep our tension, this will be nice and secure. So I'm going to pick up 3 more beads. I'm going to skip a bead so our thread's coming out this way. And going in the direction of your thread, you're going to skip a bead and then come out the next bead. So we're going to make our little square again. We're just going to do that all the way around. Pick up 3. Skip a bead and go through the next bead. It's our little square corners. Okay. Pick up 3. Skip a bead, go through the next. Okay, and we're going to come out the tip. Okay, so we're going to want to come out of the tip. Okay, so now our piece looks like that, and we're out of the tip, going this way. So now we're going to pick up 5. And we're gonna go through the next tip, remember? Like that. So that's what it looks like. We're gonna pick up 5 more and then go through the next tip. And then we're gonna do that all the way around. So I'm just gonna do that 2 more times. Got my tension on the other side. Okay, and then like we did before, we're gonna go through that last tip and then we're gonna go out 2 more beads. Okay? The tip plus 2 more. So it's gonna look like this. Now we're gonna pick up 3. We're gonna skip this next bead. So our thread's going this way, we're gonna skip the next bead and go through 2, just the next 2. Okay, I'll show you. Okay, so we're coming out, right now we're coming out of this bead right here. So now we're gonna pick up 1 bead. Okay, I'm gonna use the same color. I'm gonna pick up 1 bead, and this bead is just going right here. Okay, so I'm picking up 1. I'm not gonna go through that tip. I'm just gonna go through these next 2 beads to come out on this other side over here. Okay, not going through the tip. If we go through the tip, our bead is gonna get twisted up there. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Pick up 3 more. Skip 1. Go through 2. Okay, skip 1, go through 2 and come out. And then pick up 1. Okay. Then go through the 2 on this side. Okay, going through those 2. Pick up 3 more. Skip 1, go through 2. Pick up 1. Go through 2. Pick up 3. Go through, skip 1 and then go through 2. Okay, and this is the last side of adding 1. And then we're going to go through these 2. Okay, so that's what it should look like. It has these extra little beads on the side. So our first base for the front of our flower doesn't have these little nubs here. So what those are for, so we're going to keep going. We're going to go around these 3 beads on the tip, and we're going to come out just on the other side. So so right now I'm out the tip bead. So I'm just going to go through 1 more. Okay. So that's what it looks like. So right now, let's see. So I'm coming out of this bead. See that little nubby bead right there? So there's a little bit of a gap in between where I'm coming out. So there's 2 beads length between where I'm coming out and this little nubby bead here. So here's where, if you're using size 11, you're going to pick up 3 beads, okay? Or if you're using size 10. But if you're using the bigger beads, like these, so I've got an option here now. I can use size 11 or 10, or I can use this bigger size 8, or I can use, let's see, a size 6. Okay, so like this is a size 6. This is even bigger than that. And it'll look a little different based on which size you use, and that's sort of the fun, is just sort of figuring that out. So I'm gonna leave that up to you. I think I'm gonna go, I like to just kind of hold it up. So I'll show you what's gonna happen. So this is our base. This is gonna get sewn onto this, and whatever color bead we put here, it's gonna pop out the side, okay? It's gonna kind of pop out the side, either up here, on either side of these like blue petals. We're gonna be able to see it, okay? If you're using size 11 or size 10, it's gonna kind of make like a zigzag up here, and it's really pretty. It almost looks like lace. And if we're using a bigger bead, it's easier for attaching, which is what I'm gonna do. You'll see one big bead here and one big bead here, all the way around, okay? So your color's gonna pop out. So this looks really pretty. I also have this, that looks really pretty too. I think I'm gonna go, I think I'm actually gonna go with this gray. And I might change my mind. Let me see. Yeah, I think that works just a little bit better. You don't need too many of these. I'm just gonna do that. Okay. Just gonna put that to the side. All right. So I let go of this in, so I'm just gonna wrap that up again. Okay. All right, so where were we? We were about to pick up our edging beads. So I'm gonna go with, so sometimes these size 8s, 2 of them will fit in this space. But these ones, I think I'm just gonna use 1. If you're using a size 6, just 1 bead goes here, okay? And I'm using a size 8, but also 1 bead is gonna go here. If you're using 11 or 10, you're gonna pick up 3 beads. Okay, so essentially what we're doing is I'm gonna put this little bead here, and then this little nubby bead here on the end, I'm gonna come through that little bead right there, okay? Remember to keep your tension. So I'm gonna pick up another bead, and then I'm gonna go through our corner pointies right there. So it's basically like you're skipping 2 beads that are kind of on this lower layer here, and you're just gonna come up through the tip beads. So that's like there's 2 beads there. Okay. So now I'm out that very tip bead going this way. Just gonna come down through that 1. So now I'm on the other side. There's that two beads width right there. So I'm just gonna pick up 1 bead, come out through that little kind of nubby bead there in the middle. Okay. And I'm just gonna do that all the way around. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that now. Pick up 1, go through my corner beads, come back down through just that 1, pick up 1, go through that little nubby bead right there, pick up another bead, go through my corner again, come back down through that 1, okay, and now when we get to the final side here, I'm gonna come out of this tip bead. I'm gonna come out of this tip, okay? You wanna end So we put on half of our edging beads. So the next step is going to be to weave this end into the piece. So you might need to put your needle. I'm going to have to put my needle on this short end and weave that in. And then after that, we're going to sew this bottom piece onto here. I'll kind of show you what it'll look like. So it'll look kind of like that, and you can see those little gray beads peeking out over the top there. See that? So that's like half of our edging beads. The other half we're going to put on after we sew on this bottom piece. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and, so this is what it should look like. I'm going to go ahead and put my needle on this end and weave that in, and I'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay, so now we're ready to sew our back onto our front. And our needle should be coming out the top of one of these corners. I'm just gonna check. I thought I felt a little knot in my thread. Nope. Okay. So I'm coming out this way. Oop. All right. Let's get a handle on this here. All right. So I'm coming out this way. I'm gonna go ahead and take my top. I'm going to lay it on top here, so the corners should match. Okay, so your corners are going to match. So on the base of this flower here, you have corners, right? And on this one you have corners. So we're going to match our corners. Now I'm coming out this way, so what I'm going to do, so basically what we're going to do here is we're going to sew our bottom sort of like square to the bottom of this flower, to that bottom square that we initially made to build our petals on. So I'm coming out of the tip. Now underneath this petal here, underneath this petal is also a tip. It's a tip of our bottom square. So we have two tip beads that are lined up. So I'm coming out this way out of the bottom one. I'm going to take my needle and go this way through this square tip that's right underneath this petal here that this petal is sitting on, okay? It's kind of hard to see because it's clear, but... I'm going this way, coming out of that tip bead. Oh, then I'll drop my needle. Okay, now the tricky part is just kind of holding them in place until we get some of the beads sewn together. Okay, so now my needle's coming out this way under the tip that's right underneath that petal. So now I'm gonna take my needle and go this way again through this bottom layer, that tip. So that's the one we were just coming out of before we did a little stitch onto this top one. So now we're going to go back this way through that same tip on the very bottom, like that. Okay. Okay, so now we have one corner. We have one corner sewed together. So we're a quarter of the way there. All right. So now we're on the bottom, we're on the very bottom layer, we're coming this way. We're just going to go through this next clear bead, and I'm going to come out my gray bead there. See my one gray bead, my closest big gray size 8 bead. So I'm just going to go through that, and I'm going to come out. Okay, so now I'm coming out of that gray bead there. Now what I'm going to do, see this this petal here with the blue center? I'm going to go this way through that very top tip bead. It's already right next to this gray bead here, so I'm just going to go through that tip. Okay, so now we're still facing this way, and then I'm going to go this way through this next big gray bead on the bottom. Okay, make sure it's snug. Okay, so now we sewed that part together. So now I'm just gonna kind of do that same thing all the way around. So now I'm gonna go through, so right next to this gray bead are these silver tipped, or these clear tip beads. I'm gonna come out through that tip on the very bottom. So I'm facing this way. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did on this other corner. I'm gonna turn my needle and go this way on the tip of that clear bead that's right underneath this corner petal, right? That's what it's built on. So I'm going to come this way through that very tip bead. Okay? And then I'm going to go this way through the very bottom tip again. The one we were just coming out of. I'm going to come out of that again. Okay? And now we have one whole side done. Okay, now I'm just going to do that on this side. So I'm going to go through this one clear bead, go through this next clear bead, and then this one bigger gray bead. And then I'm going to go through the tip of this petal, right there. I'm going to keep going the same direction. I'm going to go through this next big gray bead. Okay. And then I'm going to want to come out this other tip. So I'm going to go through these next two clear beads on the bottom. Come out the tip there. Okay, so now I'm at the tip, so now I'm at another corner that I need to secure. So I'm going to turn around and go this way through that clear bead that's underneath that corner petal. Coming this way. I'm going to take my needle and go back this way through that corner bead on the bottom. Okay, and now we have two sides secure. Okay, and I'm just going to do that again for these next two sides. Go through the clear bead on the bottom, go through that gray bead on the bottom, and then through the tip of that petal. I'm going to go through my next big gray bead. I'm going to go through these next two clear beads to get to the tip. Turn my needle around, go through that bottom bead under that petal. Turn my needle around again, go this way, go through that next clear bead, go through the big gray bead and through the tip of the petal. Do that again. All right, so now I'm coming out. Now I'm coming out of that first corner I did, and you can see that the whole thing now is sewn together. And since this is size D thread, it feels pretty secure. If it was size B, I might go through it again. That's up to you. You know, you want to get it. You do want to get it to where it feels secure. But look at where we're at now. Now we're almost done with our first earring. I'm just gonna kind of shape these little beads. I just love this part. Okay. All right, so we're coming out of that corner bead on the bottom, right? We're gonna go through, what we're gonna do is we wanna go through until we're coming out of the second gray bead, closer to the other tip, okay? So we're gonna go through, I'm gonna go through this little clear bead. I'm going to go through this big gray bead and through that tip of the petal again. And then I'm going to come out of this big gray bead. I'm going to stop for just a second. Okay, so now we're coming out this way out of that second bigger bead. If you are using size 10 or size 11 to do your edging, you're gonna want to come out. Let me see. Hold on a second, I have to visualize this. Okay. So you're just gonna come out of that third bead. So there's like you should have like a little point here and a point here. Okay. And what you're gonna do, we're gonna do this pretty much the same thing, except this is a big bead and you're gonna have like a point. Okay, so we're coming this way. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick up, let me see if I wanna use the same color. So what you can do here, you can either use the same color or you can switch it up and use another color of a big bead or a size 11 or 10. You know, so I could even put on this blue now. Let's see. I kind of dislike this other one that I originally pulled out, so I think I'm going to stick with that. Okay, I just got to adjust my needle on my thread. Make sure I have enough room to work. I might need a few more of these beads. Okay, so now since I'm working with size 8, I'm gonna pick up 1, 2, 3, I think it's gonna be 4. If you're working with size 6, you're only gonna need to pick up 3 beads to fill this gap to go around the corner. So essentially what we're doing is we are going from 1 gray bead on one side, and we're gonna go through this other side. See that? So I'm working with size 8, and that's what 4 beads look like, and I'm wondering if I should pick up 5. This size 8 is a little on the thin side. I think 4 would work, but I'm just gonna see what 5 looks like. And not all beads are the same, even if they, you know, they're sold as the same size, there's differences. Okay, so that looks perfect. That fills that space. You can see that it's kind of filling that around the edge of that petal nicely. So if you have size 6, you still need just 3 beads. If you're using size 11, you might need like 7 or maybe 10, maybe 8. You'll just have to see which how many fills in this space nicely. Okay, so I think I'll wait to put on my, so let's say maybe I'll do my, yeah, let's do it. So I'm gonna attach my hook now. So where this is gonna go is in between these 2 gray beads here. And I'm gonna need to use either like 1 or 2 size 11s to attach it here. Or depending on the size of this size 8, I might be able to use one. Nope, they're too big. So even if you're using size 6 on the outside, you're gonna wanna switch back over to a size 11 to attach your earring hook. So you just wanna make sure that the hook is nice and flush, and I think I checked these before I started this video. So my earring, you don't want any kind of a gap in here, otherwise your thread might pull, it might slip off your thread. So I'm gonna decide on which color I want up here of a size 11, and I think I'm either gonna do a clear, because that's, you know, kind of like the least obvious or contrasty for this design, or I might do these gray ones. I think would also work, and I think that's what I'll do. I think I'll use the gray. Okay, so I'm going to pick up 1 bead, I'm going to pick up the earring hook, and then I'm going to pick up 1 more of my little gray size 11 beads. So now I'm coming out this way. I'm going to go through this next big gray bead there. And if you're using size 11 or size 10, you're going to come through not the tip of that point. You're going to have a point right here on either side. You're not going to go through the very tip. You're going to be sewing up through the bottom of those tips. So there's 3 beads there that you put on. Where we put on like this bigger bead, you're going to put on, you're going to go up through the bottom of that tip and then go up through the top and then come back out through the bottom, okay, to maintain that shape. Okay. All right, so that's what we have. Now I'm just going to do that all the way around. I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my size 8s. I'm going to come out this other side over here. And some of these beads are bigger, and so they'll look, some of the sides might look pointier than others. And if you like that, that's okay. Or if you want to switch out your beads so that they look more uniform, that's okay. It's up to you. So now what I'm going to do, instead of going through this tip here, I'm going to add a little extra color here, or a little extra bigger bead. So I'm just going to put one bead. I'm going to pick up one of my big gray beads and put it through here. If you're using size 10 or 11, you can pick up, I think it's like 2 beads will fill that space. If you're using size 6, a size 6 one should fit there. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up 5 more. And then I'm going to turn it around and come out through this gray bead here. Okay. I'm going to pick up one more. Go through here. Okay, so we're edging our flower. Now we're going to pick up 5 more. Okay, and go through this one. So this next bead is going to be the last bead that I add to this. It's going to be one of these little gray beads here. I'm just going to come up through the side. So now, look at that. We've got an earring. There's the back. You can see this side right here is a little pointier. You might be able to just kind of shape it like that. If a side bugs you, you can always go back and take it out and redo it, but I think that looks okay. So now that we have everything, all of our beads in place, it's just a matter of sewing in our end. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go all the way around. I'll go around at least once more so that this the beads here with the hook has at least 2 threads going through it. Okay, so I'll probably go all the way around once more and maybe halfway around. But I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. So when you come to this spot here where your hook is, you want to make sure that you go through those 2 little size 11 beads on either side of it and through the hook. So make sure you go through those little beads. Don't skip them. Keep it nice and tension taut there. Tight. Just kind of shaping as I go. So my corner beads are actually, they're all looking like they're having a point. So that looks nice. It's kind of like the more thread that goes through it, the more they sort of like tighten up and take shape sometimes. Oh, I bent my needle. Okay, we're almost done. Oh my god. So when I first started making these, I think I was about 18. I was going through a really hard time. Dealing with lots of past trauma, and I felt like I was losing my mind. I just felt like everything in the world was dark. Everything was a sign of just death, and this whole self-sabotage, that's a real thing. I was in a really dark place, and I felt like I needed a good, healthy, forward momentum kind of practice in my life. And I'd been, taught beadwork. I started learning beadwork when I was like 5, going to Red Lake Elementary School. They would teach us with like bigger beads, like crow beads. We would just string them, make little necklaces, and then in later grades we'd learn, like daisy chain and loom and things like that. So that was one thing that was always positive for me, an activity. And then also watching, relatives make regalia. My brother, Ellie, he's really good at making, like beading around like work clubs and pipes and things. And so I thought of him, and I just sat down with a little plate of beads one day, and I said a prayer, and I asked if I could make something. I knew that if I could make something out of these tiny little beads, that I can make something out of my life. And I just sat down with a little plate of beads, and it felt like this flower. I just made a flower, and I never made it before, and it felt like the flower was like popping out of the darkness, like something was handing me this little flower. And that for, years, I worked on that design, and it just really, like, that sort of chaotic feeling that I had, and, like, just the feeling of, like, dread that I would get, like, when PTSD symptoms would flare up. That sort of, like, just sitting down and, like, making these little flowers was really, it would, like, refocus my mind and my intentions, and like my body, like followed along, And so through patience of working with these little beads, like I found patience for, myself and other areas of my life. I was able to let my mind be patient, to like see good things in life and see happy things and see things that I could reach for that I hadn't seen before, that I'd forgotten, I get kind of emotional thinking about it, because it's like a form of prayer for me, this pattern. And so it's really awesome to share. Okay, so I think I'm good here. I think I'm just gonna go to this other edge. My poor little needle is just getting bent again, but I'm not going to straighten it yet because I'm almost done. Look at that! And we're done with an earring. Isn't that cute? Oh, if you all could share a picture of what your earring looks like when you're done on the post, or tag me with it in a post, that would be so cool and just really special. It's really special for me to share this. And when I was given this pattern, I knew that it was something that I was supposed to give, like give to other people. And so that's why I'm doing this video. I'm just gonna cut my thread off. And I'm gonna take my needle off so that I don't can keep track of my needles and my excess thread there. And there you have it. I'm just gonna kind of, we have to wiggle that around just to make sure. So you should be able to. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you before I go today a couple little things for inspiration. Once you get the 4-sided flower down, you can do things like sew them together and make a bracelet. And it got this really cool, like wavy kind of feel to it. And this one I sewed a few together and made this collar necklace. So I did like a little vine on the side. So this one's pretty old. That's probably 14 years old. I used to like to experiment with those. And then also, when you get the four-sided one down, you can sew them together and make a pendant, like that. And this one, I experimented with some deer hide in the middle, but that was just kind of like a one-time or two-time kind of thing that I tried. So you don't need that in there, but this is one of my favorite styles, and this is one of my favorite pieces. If you want, I could show you how to make one of these. This is a funky one, but I just took a top of a flower and kind of put in this little, use like some resin and put it in this little pendant. But you don't have to, soak it in resin. You could have one little flower. I've made plenty of one flower necklaces, and I could show you how to do one of those if you want. Those are usually better with a five-sided flower, but you can do it with a four-sided. And then yeah, once you learn that, the five-sided ones are pretty much exactly the same thing, except you start with 10 beads in the middle instead of 8. And then you have 5 sides instead of 4. And you can link those together and make a bracelet. You can make earrings. So, and also, I'm going to add in some pictures here of some different examples of earrings with dangles, semi-precious stones and birch bark, and there's one of the bracelets, the four-sided bracelets. And there you have it. I wanted to thank you all for beading with me today. And I hope you have a great experience. And if you could show me what you make, I would love that. That would be so special. And if you have any questions, just let me know. And if there's anything you want to see, we could even do, not really beading, but we can make birch bark earrings. If you want to make a bracelet, or if you want to go through the 5-sided tutorial and make something, just let me know, okay? Alright. Gigawapamin Minawa.